All right, what's up, everybody? This is Sherry coming at you from OP and the Big D. That's Odyssey Pets in Dallas, Texas. July is Can Month here at Odyssey Pets, and we have a sale on select cans. One of the reasons I created this event was to highlight why wet food is so awesome. A couple of reasons real quick are it's less processed, it adds moisture, low carb, and it has a lot of palatability. But we're going to talk about that further. We have the privilege to talk to Bryan Neiman with Fromm Family Pet Foods. He's the brand director and fifth generation family member. Bryan, how are you?
I'm doing excellent, given everything that's going on in the world today, but here at home, working from home. Luckily, I got 3 young girls I get to spend time with, and my dog and cat, of course, too. So, things could be worse.
Definitely. Fromm has been around for a very long time, and some of our viewers may not be that familiar with your company. Could you give us a little bit of background about Fromm?
Absolutely. We've been a family-owned company since 1904. So this company was started by technically my great-great-grandfather. We were in canning and banking and et cetera at the beginning of the century, and then we got into pet food in the 1940s. We developed one of the first complete and balanced dry dog foods in 1949. We also developed some of the first canned dog foods as well. So we've been innovating ever since. My dad represents the 4th generation of the business. He learned extrusion and product formulation directly from Dr. Willard Roberts, who was kind of the father of modern day pet food. He developed the process for high meat extrusion. He did what today would be considered even still the largest scale feeding trial ever conducted to figure out what the right macro and micronutrients are for dogs and cats when we did the first original Fromm dog meal in the 40s. And my dad worked as his understudy for about 15 years before Doc passed away in 1999. So my dad's been formulating everything ever since. We've got a great R&D team full of nutritionists, biochemists, veterinarians here on site. And that's kind of the short version. I think you and I talked, we could talk for hours on the history of the company. But we're still today family-owned, family-operated. We own 4 separate manufacturing facilities. My dad is here at our facility in Mequon, Wisconsin. He works out of there every day. My brother plays a large part at our largest production facility in Columbus, Wisconsin. And then, of course, we have our cannery, which I think we're going to talk about a bit here. And we also have a treat facility locally. So we're totally hands-on. We don't really know it any other way. And we're really proud of what we do.
That's awesome. And yeah, having a family-run company these days, you're kind of a unicorn, right?
My favorite animal, the unicorn.
All right. So yeah, we're talking about cans though. So you guys have your own cannery. What led you to that decision? And yeah, what's the background about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I just mentioned we've been canning since the 1940s. So yeah, we used to can dog food and also people food actually back in the beginning of the century. But we got out of that as we developed kind of our dry pet food. We kind of focused on that and stopped canning back in the probably early 1970s. So we really focused on dry dog food and cat food from that point on. And we would continue to have canned pet foods, but we'd have them co-packed, which means you hire another company to manufacture your cans for you. So we had some good products doing that. We never had a whole bunch of products. It was really just to kind of have that type of product and ones that we helped formulate, so we knew they were nutritionally balanced and good. We would continually try to make better products, and we would eventually jump to different co-packers. We had some overseas in the beginning of the 2000s. When that whole product recalls started happening, we weren't a part of that at all. But people really started to focus on U.S.-made pet food, and that obviously extended to canned foods as well. So we had forced to find a co-packer again here in the U.S. that met the quality standards that we were seeing, where we were getting it hand-packed at the time. Now, while we're over here in the U.S., getting it co-packed, it's good. You make products, but we didn't have that hands-on feel that we do with the products that we make in our own facility. It's one thing to formulate a product, but to actually know the process in which to make the product and see it happening every day and have complete control over the raw ingredient flow and where you're sourcing ingredients from. It's always something that we wanted to get back into, and we were presented with an opportunity back in about 2013, 2014 to take a cannery, a human foods cannery here in Wisconsin that hadn't been running for a couple of years because the human foods company actually had more than enough capacity with their other facilities that we were able to resurrect that cannery and turn it into a high meat inclusion pet food cannery. In the process, though, we kept all the same safety protocols and everything that they were already doing with human foods. So we're essentially making pet food now in a human food plant, and we own the process again. So not only did we get the facility, we were lucky to have that facility that was already existing that we could put our equipment in and start formulating with, but we also leaned on them with their expertise on canning. So we've actually kept on a large number of the staff that had run that facility originally, just because they know how to safely and effectively make canned products. They used to be making people food, now they're making pet food. And then we've worked in our background on nutrition and formulation to making nutritionally what the animals need. So it really worked out really well for us to find something that we're going to have to build it from scratch and try to relearn the entire canning process from the ground up. We could partner with someone who's been in the industry actually 115 years to help us get it up and running, and it's been really good so far.
I was going to say, is this true? Like, if before you guys got your cannery going, there was only like 4 canneries in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know the exact number, but it is not very many. And that's one thing people don't know about a lot of times about the pet food that they buy, or even the people food that you buy. The brand name that's on the product, it's probably more likely that's produced by some kind of co-packer. So that's very common in the pet food industry. There's a lot of companies that have products but don't actually make their own food. There's nothing stopping anybody who's listening out there to coming up with a product idea and then shopping it out and trying to find someone to make it for you. What makes us super unique is we've always made our own dry pet food. We started doing our own canned food, but yeah, now we make all our own cans again. We make our own dog treats. So we're totally hands-on in all the products that we make, which is something that really makes us stand apart that a lot of people don't know about.
That's awesome. I find this information very interesting. And if anybody has any questions that's watching, just throw it in the comments and we'll get to it. So further on the cans, is the food cooked before you put it in the can or after? How does that work?
Okay, yeah, canning is feels like it's almost as old as time. Obviously not, but the canning process was invented centuries ago, and it really hasn't changed much. And I'm sure people out there listening right now probably do their own canning. Maybe they have a garden that they can't use everything up at one time, so you can take some of that and you can can it and help preserve it. So why canning is so safe is that you are able to cook things inside the can, or you can put it in a jar is another way. That's also kind of canning. The fact that you're cooking it while it's in there and the seal's already been made is what makes sure that you have a safe product. So in our case, and in pretty much all cases you're going to find in canned people food or canned pet food, it's cooked inside the can. The process itself is pretty simple. So we take our different raw ingredients, whether that's going to be meat or fish. We'll mix in either grains, or we do different like salmon oils and different types of whatever we're going to put into the can. We mix that up, and it just goes through a big mixer. So you can do the same thing in your kitchen. And actually, our R&D lab looks like a kitchen. We have KitchenAid mixers. We have all the different things that you would see in a normal kitchen. And then we have little pressure cookers where we actually develop the products. And we're able to do that at scale really well, because it is really basic. You're taking raw ingredients, putting it into a vessel, in this case a can, then we're sealing that can, and then it's going to be cooked in a pressure cooker. So we do that also in our lab. We have a little hand seamer Obviously, at the cannery, we've got an automatic seamer that's going to seal that can. But in our R&D lab, we just run it through a hand crank sealer. We do that, then we're going to put it into a little pressure cooker and cook it. And then in the cannery, what does the pressure cooking is something called a retort. And the retort is pretty much a giant pressure cooker where you take whole carts full of different cans, layers and layers and layers of cans, and you wheel those into this giant pressure cooker, and then we seal that up, and then we drop in hot water, and then we cook it under pressure to, like in the case of dog food, we're going to do that over 250 degrees at high pressure. And for dog food, it's about an hour, and it's cooked. And cat food's a little bit smaller can. You do a 5.5 ounce can. That'll be in there for about 30 minutes. And by the time that's done, you've got a completely sterile product that bacteria can't grow in. And there's no light, there's no oxygen barrier, and that's how we know that product is safe. That's the canning process in a nutshell.
I often wondered how you could have a can of meat sit on a shelf for, a 1.5 years, 2 years. But yeah, it's because there's no oxygen in there, right?
There's nowhere for bacteria to grow. And so, you can have a bad seal on a can, and then you typically will see it bubble out. So what we do after we make a batch is actually goes into an incubation period where we'll take individual cans out of that lot. We'll put it in an incubation period for about 5 days, and we're looking for any sort of bulging or anything like that that would indicate a bad seal or bacteria growth that could affect potentially the other part of the lot if there was something wrong with the sealer at the time, or we didn't hit the thermal values we needed to, that we didn't get to the right temperature when we were cooking it. So we do have that extra safety precaution. But yeah, with canning, that's why it's safe to do at home if you're doing it right. If you get a good seal, you can seal it up, you can can your vegetables, and you can eat those in case of, like, feel like this pandemic feels like we're all stuck inside, right?
I bet canning has, I wonder if canning has shot up in like the hobby aspect. Wow. Okay. No, I think that's so interesting. That's crazy. I've seen one of your talks before, and I know you're very passionate about nutrition, and Fromm is one of the best out there. What sets Fromm apart as far as nutrition wise, and what sets their cans apart too?
Sure. So yeah, we not only coming back to, we formulate our own products and we produce our own products. We know everything from sourcing all the way through distribution. We're in part of that entire process. So just knowing the know-how, again, my dad being the understudy of Doc Roberts, that's something, there's not really a 4-year degree you can get in formulating pet food. You can get bits and pieces of it, but there's nothing like actually being the understudy of one of the pioneers of the business, where he was actually able to live and breathe that entire process. So he would sit with Doc for entire days. His days are like 12-hour days. He works crazy hours, 90, 100 hours a week. I always thought he was nuts when I was a kid, but he was just really passionate about it, just absorbing like a sponge all this information that Doc had learned, not only through his academic experience, but also through scientific feeding trials. So he's just this wealth of knowledge. So just to have somebody here in our company that has learned from pretty much the pioneer of modern day pet food, I think sets us apart. Our suppliers, we vet them. We have what's called an approved supplier program, where we have a set of criteria where we're looking for, we know exactly where, if it was in the case of like barley or oats, we don't know where that farm is, where it originally was, where it's coming from. We know the entire chain of custody from when it's grown to harvested to how it's going to end up at our facility. We have, once we've actually vetted a supplier and say, oh yeah, we can write POs and get product from you because we vetted your entire process. When we receive products, we have one of our employees goes out and he'll actually sample product from the truck, bring it back into our own wet lab that we have at our production facility, and he'll run tests on that raw ingredient, visual tests, smell tests. We'll run it for analysis to look for any toxins that might be able to detect in that product before we ever even receive that load. So we're looking at everything extremely closely through every part of that process. And then everywhere in between that now is in our facility. We've got highly trained operators at our facilities that, again, because the way we make product has kind of been handed down generation to generation, it's totally unique. So you can't just take an employee who's been at a pet food facility and expect them to know how to make Fromm dog food. That's something that we train. Again, it comes down to living it with the person who you're learning it from. We've always taken an approach where you're kind of learning on the job, and you kind of don't get to do the big things by yourself until you've gone through a certain amount of time, and we can see that you can perform that duty because it is so unique. So I think what really sets our product apart is people formulating it have learned from the people that have been doing it the longest in the industry. We got a great track record with our products. The products that we made back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, even today would feed phenomenally. So we've got this track record of making these incredibly well-balanced products that have stood up to the test of time. And what that comes down to is making sure you have the right macro and micronutrients in that product. They're balanced well. And then that the process in which that you produce that product, you're not destroying any of those nutrients. And hopefully you're actually increasing digestibility on the product by helping inject some of the energy into that product to help it break apart and hopefully rebuild like the amino acids and other critical things in your dog or cat at home.
I wanted to interject. A lot of our customers, you mentioned co-packing before. They don't really know what that means, and a lot of these, there's a lot of companies out there that co-pack, and they let the co-packer pick the ingredients for them. Like they say, here's our recipe, and then they just source the cheapest ingredients, which is how we wound up with the big recall in 2007, 2008.
The melamine recall was in 2007.
Yeah. So I like the smaller companies that will source their own ingredients, which is what you guys do. And I'm not saying that the companies who co-pack are bad, but I just like to make sure they're actually sourcing their own ingredients and keeping track of that. So sounds like you guys are very thorough.
We are very thorough. Yeah, and again, there's nothing. I don't have anything else over that necessarily against co-packing. I mean, we were doing it for years there while we were just kind of keep up with the growth on our dry pet food. But yeah, for us, I mean, at least when we were getting our product co-packed, we knew how to formulate products. We have that whole R&D team that knows how to formulate pet food and what dogs and cats require and how they're going to thrive. So we had that piece of it. But to your point, yeah, there's some people that just look to capitalize on a trend or something out there that they oh, if I create a product that meets these X, Y, and Z bullet points, I can sell a lot of it. So what can happen is, obviously those people don't know a whole lot about animal nutrition. You can go to a co-packing company and say, hey, make me a product like this. And then you are relying on the co-packer to put that product together to somehow meet what you're trying to do. For us, we're always looking holistically at the animal. How do we make fantastic product? And then we come take a step back and say, oh, how can we make things unique and fun? As opposed to saying, oh, we want to make things that are unique and fun or capitalizing on a trend and then try to back ourselves into nutrition. We're always nutrition first, nutrition forward.
Definitely. Agreed. Okay. Well, if anybody has any questions, y'all let us know. Oh, wait, we have a question. Has any of the formulation, so Sue is a longtime customer with us. Has any of the formulations changed since the FDA is researching diets and DCM? Okay, real quick. Sue, I don't know if you saw my post, but the whole DCM thing is totally flawed, and there's nothing being linked to grain-free diets as far as I know. And I think it was a big conspiracy. But anyway, what do you think, Bryan?
I mean, we're following any research that's being done, especially in a large scale. We read those scientific journals whenever they're published. We've got alerts built in, so our nutritionist is alerted right away. Anytime there's a new article, if she feels it necessary, she actually sends those to me. Anything that she finds interesting. Yeah, we haven't seen any scientific evidence to support a link between DCM and diet. But yeah, we're following the research. We think it's interesting. We totally believe that the DCM issue is something that we want to know why and what does cause it. So we totally support research there. We have not, to answer your question, Sue, we haven't changed any of our formulations because of the FDA alert that went out. We certainly looked at all the research that was available, and we continue to look at the research that's available, but there's been nothing that would say that there's anything that any of our, especially our products, would be doing to contribute to DCM. We are doing our own research to look at the things that they've kind of questioned, like does taurine make a difference if you supplement it, and staving that off. We work not only in with feeding trials on our pet foods, but we're also we work with a fantastic organization down in Florida called the Southeastern Guide Dogs, where we have full access to their veterinarian team, and they actually take these dogs that help service veterans and help the blind as service dogs. They've got an amazing staff where they actually see these dogs from as puppies grown all the way up into service dogs. So they have full vet records, know exactly what the dogs ate. So we're trying to work with them too to kind of look at, especially with Goldens, which is a lot of those service dogs are, if there's things we can look at or look for any trends. So we're constantly looking at it. Obviously, it's something that worries us too. We would never want to do anything that would be to the detriment of the dog, but at the same time, we do want to figure out what's going on with DCM. So hopefully that's a long-winded answer to the question. But
no, I think you got it. You got it. But the whole DCM debacle, I could go on about that, but we won't today. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? You can just drop it in the comments. Otherwise, how can people learn more about Fromm Pet Food? What's y'all's website?
Our website is frommfamily.com. And we're on Facebook as well. You can send us a message there. We got a great customer service team. Nutritionists available 5 days a week. We have veterinarians you can talk to as well. We can either, our vet can talk to you, or we can connect your veterinarian up with our veterinarian if there's anything, if you have like maybe a problem you're trying to solve, or you want a second opinion on something that's kind of that could be diet related. We have got great resources. We have live chat on our website most of the time, depending on how overwhelmed our customer service team is. And people kind of consider us sometimes as this giant, big company, but our customer service team, I think we've got maybe 5 to 6 people per day there. Small team, but they're all super well trained and enthusiastic, and it really helps everyone feel part of a team and a family business. So we encourage people to reach out and ask those questions. There's something like Sue, I'm glad that you asked the question. Like, we want to be able to talk to you and make you feel comfortable that you've made the right choice in feeding Fromm. And we'll also tell you too, if there's if you have a dog that has a special dietary condition that we may not have the right product, we'll tell you that. We'll tell you that straight up too. We want you to do the right thing for your pets, and most of the time, there's a product, one of our products that your dog or cat's going to thrive on. But ask us those tough questions, because we do want to be open and honest, and at the end of the day, solve problems and have healthier dogs and cats.
That's awesome. I love companies where you can actually call and get a hold of a person to ask a question, because not all companies do that. So thank you for having that resource for the public. All right. Well, you guys, here at Odyssey Pets, we're doing 50 cents off the Fromm dog cans and 25 cents off the cat cans for the rest of the month. So y'all can take advantage of that. And I want to thank Bryan so much for spending time with us. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much. I had to bug him a couple times to get him to do this. So we really appreciate it. And I want everyone to stay safe out there. And thank you so much for watching.
Thank
Y'all
you.
have a good day. Thanks.